told you, there is substantial evidence to believe that Joseph Smith survived Carthage assassination by the Carthage mob, went into the witness protection program for the United States, and continued to live out his life as John Bideman. Yes. Contrary to what you've been told, John Taylor did not witness Joseph Smith get killed. In fact, that was a story he made up years after Smith's death. John Taylor did finger Thomas Sharp as one of the conspirators to kill Joseph Smith, Thomas Sharp, the editor of the Warsaw newspaper. But when it came to John Taylor testifying himself, he went into hiding to avoid arrest and subpoena to testify at the Joseph Smith trial. Well, what's that all about? That's what that is about, is that they were not witnesses, and in fact, they had plenty to hide as being part of the grand conspiracy to murder Joseph Smith at the Carthage jail, which in fact Joseph Smith was aware of, and more than likely, as evidence will show, escaped with his life after an elaborate theater rendition of Joseph Smith pretending to fall or jump from the window, survive his death after God flashed lights in front of him like stage magic to a wondering audience of young boys with guns filled with blanks who stood in awe and then ran away. That is all the evidence they have that Joseph Smith died. And I will show you now that not one coroner certified Joseph Smith's death. In fact, the original coroner that was the coroner at the time of Smith's death, he too eluded, was out of the state not to testify that Joseph Smith died. The new elected coroner refused to certify the death of Joseph Smith, and in fact, in order to continue the trial, they had to get rid of the sheriff, the coroners, and impanel a jury chosen by volunteers. And then at the trial, there was not one witness who testified they actually saw anyone shoot Joseph Smith. Those are the facts. No matter what you've heard, how it's been framed, you can go to Dallin Oak's book on the Carthage conspiracy and see there is not one instance, one witness testimony that said they saw Joseph Smith get killed. Now, there's testimony that there was some guns that went off, and then contrary testimony said that no guns went off. There was testimony that the Carthage guards had blanks in their guns. Well, why wouldn't the crowd that came with them, why wouldn't the mob who was part of the Carthage militia also have blanks in their guns? The three people that testified against the conspirators were young, unemployed boys, were paid, they said, to actually testify, and changed their story so many times it became ridiculous. All in all, no one identified the bodies as being dead before the trial, during the trial, or after the trial. The coroner refused to certify and impanel a jury, showing that they knew that Joseph Smith didn't actually die, that this was all part of an elaborate theater presentation to put Joseph Smith into a witness protection program. So let's read what Dallin Oak's Carthage conspiracy has to say about Joseph Smith and Hyrums Smith's deaths being certified by a coroner. The elected coroner in Hancock County at this time was Daniel H. Wells, the prominent Nauvoo justice of the peace, but for some unknown reason he failed to qualify and refused to serve as the coroner. Consequently, prior coroner George W. Stigall of Carthage, also a jailer at Carthage jail, continued in office, but the defendants carefully prepared affidavit took notice of the coroner as the final alternative for the official selection of jury, but alleged that Stigall was then absent from the state of Illinois. You have, number one, Daniel H. Wells, Mormon sympathizer and justice of the peace of Nauvoo, refused to certify and qualify a jury. Well, why would he do that? Because Daniel H. Wells knew that Joseph Smith had survived. My theory, why was Sheriff Stigall, the coroner, who was at the Carthage jail when Joseph Smith died, refused to also impanel a jury? Well, instead of impaneling a jury, he just skipped the state. Therefore, the only solution for the court at the time of the called trial was to just get some volunteers out of the audience, which there were volunteers. What this is saying, there was not a coroner nor a sheriff who certified that Joseph Smith was dead. There was absolutely no testimony at trial that anyone saw Joseph Smith actually get shot, and that without a body, without a certification of death, Joseph Smith was not certified as ever having been killed. Without Joseph Smith being certified legally as legally dead, history must show there's no substantial evidence to warrant the belief that Joseph Smith was killed. We have a lot of hearsay, a lot of gossip, a lot of innuendo, which I believe most of Mormon history is based on quote-unquote eyewitness testimony of John Taylor, who went into hiding, refused to come to Carthage to state that he saw Joseph Smith get shot. The list of attachments issued in December that included the name of John Taylor, who had originally signed the criminal complaint upon which this prosecution was based. He was never served because he and other Mormon leaders hid from the deputies who were trying to arrest them and take them to Carthage to testify. Do you understand what that's saying? The list of attachment issued in December showed that John Taylor was never served because he and other Mormon leaders hid from the deputies who were trying to arrest them and take them to Carthage to testify. This is scandalous. Scandalous. And the Utah Mormon Church continues to falsely rely on John Taylor's contrived testimony made up years after Smith's death that somehow he was a witness to Smith's death. Well, if John Taylor witnessed Joseph Smith's death, why did he go into hiding and refuse to testify at Joseph Smith's trial for the assassination? Well, I can tell you why, and the docent at Carthage jail can tell you why. John Taylor did not witness Joseph Smith or Hiram Smith's death. At the time of the purported assassination, John Taylor and Willard Richards were hiding underneath a mattress in an adjoining cell, locked in, and could not have witnessed anything. They were hiding like little girls under a mattress, believing that Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith were being shot. Well, at the time, Joseph Smith was jumping out of a window, and they were both carted off by family members in wagons taken to safety. And the whole mob scenario was testified to by young boys who were confused, who heard shots ring out, who saw flashing lights, etc. No one in the jail testified as to what happened. There was hearsay that several of Warsaw citizens had their noses bounced, had their noses crushed by canes, but that is it. And that probably originated the whole cane fighting scene that John Taylor later invented. So if you want to read Dallin Oak's, I think, very good book about the Carthage trial, go ahead and read it. There is not one sensible witness testimony, that can claim they actually witnessed Joseph Smith's dead body. In fact, one coroner, who was the Carthage jailer at the time, refused to certify Joseph Smith's body, and the second coroner, Wells, who was Justice of the Peace at Nauvoo, also refused to certify the death of Joseph Smith. The reason why? That Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith escaped the assassination and were not shot and went into hiding. Well, what about the bodies that were driven back in wagons to Nauvoo and paraded down the streets for Nauvoo citizens to give their condolences to? Well, it always intrigued me that Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith had created their death mass 6 months before their actual deaths, in anticipation of the day that these death masks would have to be used to put on imposters to be paraded as their dead bodies. So the theory is that the death masks made out of wax prosthetics were placed on volunteers' bodies who pretended to be Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith in wagons taken back to Nauvoo. They were taken back to Nauvoo and taken into the mansion house, where it is said no one ever saw the bodies again. Emma Smith supposedly hid the bodies so they would be protected from grave robbers. Well, what actually happened is these volunteers who were pretending to be Joseph and Hiram with their face masks on went into the mansion house, escaped out the back, and later on, months later, Emma remarries Joseph Smith, who now has become Louis Bideman. Hey, I'm not a facial expert. I can't tell you whether Louis Bideman and Joseph Smith are one and the same person, but I can tell you there is no concrete evidence to prove that Joseph Smith died at Carthage jail. No coroner's report, no witness testimony, except for vague, confused, childlike testimony saying, well, a light appeared, there was a miracle, they were trying to cut off his head, etc. It was so confusing. Even the witness on the stand said, well, I was a bit confused. Another one said, well, I was a bit drunk. I mean, I believe that in court, an adequate, a reasonably trained attorney could convince everyone that Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith were not actually murdered at Carthage jail. You see, fake news wasn't invented with President Trump. Fake news has been going on since Julius Caesar. The magic displayed by Dallin Oak's book, The Carthage Conspiracy, is that he starts with this false presumption that Joseph Smith is dead, then he gives you evidence, which is non-evidence of his death, and the audience just accepts it. Oh, that's how Joseph Smith died. You see, there was a light flash. The witnesses were drunk. Nobody actually saw Joseph Smith get killed. Oh, now I understand. It's the apocryphal, mythical martyr of the Brigham Young Mormon Church called Joseph Smith. And Joseph Smith and his family lived out their days in happiness and familial content, unlike Brigham Young, whose plural wives all despised him.